feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place.
Welcome to the National University of Singapore Yonglulin School of Medicine's 100th episode of the Healthy Longevity webinar. This is an exciting show tonight. Thank you for joining us. We've got a really special show too, because instead of one guest speaker, we have a number of different speakers that will be telling you about healthy longevity and what's going on in Singapore. I'm excited to hear them. Because of this, though, we will not be picking up questions from the Q&A box tonight. You can still leave your comments with us, though. We're very excited to hear what you think about the show. And it's also an exciting show because we have co-hosts tonight. I want to bring in Andrea to share more with our guests.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you, the audience, of joining us tonight in this very special edition. We prepared an exciting program for you, celebrating our 100th show. And the focus on today's webinar is indeed the healthy longevity ecosystem in Singapore. It's my privilege to introduce you to our guests. It's Member of Parliament, Mr. Henry Kwek, our Senior NUHS leader, Professor John Wong, and the director of our newly formed Academy for Health Longevity, Professor Maier. And of course, we will also hear from our NUHS faculty members, including our PhD students, because it's, I think, very important to also not only showcase the ecosystem, but also hear from the individuals who are working in the ecosystem. The ecosystem, and therewith this webinar, would not be possible without our Dean of the NUHS School of Medicine, the Yonglulin School, Professor Seng Chong. It's our pleasure to have you here tonight with this special edition. Over to you, Professor Chong.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Today marks the 100th episode of the Healthy Longevity webinar series since it started almost 3 years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic. And just like how the world population is aging rapidly, this series is also aging very fast, taking fewer years than most other webinar series to reach 100 episodes. Jokes aside, to make it to 100 is a truly remarkable feat. I would like to commend the team for their tremendous efforts in starting, but more importantly, in continuing conversations on healthy longevity. I would also like to thank the many of you who have regularly dedicated an hour of your busy week to join us at these webinars, because it's only through dialogue and discourse that we can have meaningful exchanges of ideas. For centuries, man's goal was to stay alive for as long as possible. But in this century, the aim is to stay healthy for as long as we are alive. Singapore has one of the fastest aging populations in the world and is set to attain super-aged status in 2026. By 2030, 1 in 4 citizens will be aged 65 years and above, up from 1 in 5 now. Our life expectancy is also steadily rising. However, while Singapore's life expectancy at birth is 83 years of age, our healthy life expectancy is 73 years. This means that Singaporeans can expect to spend 10 years in ill health on average. This does not bode well for children born today, as they are likely to live to 100 years old and above. We need to step up efforts to bridge the health span gap now. This is why one of the moonshots that NUHS Medicine is aiming for is to increase the healthy life expectancy or health span of Singaporeans by 5 years by 2050. We hope to achieve that in a few ways. Currently, all our preventive health guidelines are based on gender and chronological age. The school is looking into refining current diagnostics and biomarkers to better risk stratify individuals. The Healthy Longevity Translational Research Program is also focused on creating a pipeline of research in neuroscience that includes preclinical translational approaches to slow or reverse effects of aging, and holding trials to test the efficacy of healthy longevity promoting interventions. To translate these research insights into practice and care, we work closely with the institutions in the National University Health System, especially the NUHS Center for Healthy Longevity, to inspire and empower communities to optimize and extend health. One of the myths that I would like to debunk is that health span is only something we should think about when we are old. We should start as young as possible, since aging already starts when we are born or even before that. By optimizing health and human potential in early life, that enables generations to enjoy more healthy years of life. The pursuit of healthy longevity is one that has far-reaching impact on the health, healthcare systems, and economies of nations. By investing in healthy longevity, we are investing in our collective future. Let us work to make a 100-year life worth living together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chong, of making this work. And over to Professor Brian Kennedy to really tell us why we have the Health Longevity webinar series. So a little bit about the birth and what we can expect next to what the translation program is doing. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you. And I want to just start by thanking our Dean, Chong Seng, who you just heard from. He's really been a visionary in leading this medical school in a number of different areas. But particularly, I want to highlight healthy longevity. He was one of the main reasons that I came to Singapore to join NUHS. And he's continued to be supportive of this concept of bringing healthy longevity and health span to the Singapore population. So I'm looking forward to continue to work with him. I want to tell you a little bit about how we got this Healthy Longevity webinar off the ground in the first place. It happened during something you may have heard of called the pandemic. And it was interesting, the timing when that happened, because really it's starting around 2017, the interest in longevity research really exploded. You not only saw academic scientists talking about aging at conferences, but you saw an infusion of clinicians, of investors, of companies that were interested in healthy longevity. The momentum was going like crazy. And then in 2020, everything stopped because we were all stuck in our apartments and our houses all over the world, and it was hard to communicate. So we thought of the idea of starting the Healthy Longevity webinar here at NUS Medical School as a mechanism to keep that momentum going. I don't think any of us thought there would be 100 shows at the time, but it's been quite successful along the way, and we've decided to keep it going, and we'll continue beyond 100 as well. You'll notice that if you look on the YouTube where the shows are available after we do them live, we have thousands of viewers for our shows, and sometimes over 100,000. So we're committed to keeping the messages going, keeping the momentum going, and really driving the healthy longevity field forward as much as possible. I also want to take a minute to tell you about our Healthy Longevity program. This is a translational research program, and it's coupled to the Center for Healthy Longevity to create a whole pipeline of science that goes all the way from basic science to translational research, preclinical validation, and then testing in the clinic. Ultimately, we want to bring interventions to the community to extend health span. The Healthy Longevity program contains over 30 faculty in 4 major areas, and there are 2 accompanying programs. Core Biology of Aging is one of the major programs, and that's something that Andrea and I both belong to, as well as some of the other people you'll hear tonight. In addition, though, we're focused on brain aging, muscle aging, and vascular aging. But unlike a lot of other programs in those areas, we're trying to address a specific question. What is it about aging that drives disease? So aging is the biggest risk factor for not only Alzheimer's disease, strokes, and sarcopenia, which comprise diseases in all 3 of those programs. But it's been hard to disentangle the aging component from the disease-specific components. And one of the things we want to do is separate those 2 things so that we can target them in a meaningful way. We also have the Asian Center for Reproductive Longevity and Equality that's supported by the Bioeco Foundation. This is an exciting new program looking at ovarian aging. You may know that ovaries are one of the first tissues to age in the body. That not only affects fertility in women at an early age, it also brings about menopause, which leads to downstream consequences that are not good for healthy aging. And so we want to understand both how to restore fertility and preserve it longer, but also to offset the deleterious consequences of menopause. That's a program with multiple faculty. You've heard a little bit about it on our webinars already, and you'll continue to hear more. We're also partnering with A-STAR and their IMCB program, working on stem cells and regenerative medicine, particularly what's happening to adult stem cells in the body that's driving aging processes. I think we don't talk enough about the role of declining stem cell function in the aging process, and we're committed to trying to understand that role and try to take strategies to preserve adult stem cell function. So those are some of the highlights for the Healthy Longevity Program, and you'll be hearing from several members of the program later in the show to talk a little bit about what they're doing and why they're so excited about aging. And I think with that, I'll turn it back to Andrea to introduce the Center for Healthy Longevity.
Thank you so much for this very nice overview of what is happening at NUHS. So I will tell you a little bit about what the Center for Health Longevity is doing, which is embedded in all the activities you just heard from Brian. And I would like to highlight that we have a very nice brochure really stating what our mission is and our vision, what kind of activities we have, what kind of research studies are ongoing at this moment in time to really drive forward that we are increasing the health span of individuals by 5 years and at least in 2050. I would say that we should even try to increase the health span by 3 years in the next decade. So we all know that we are aging, and what's happening in our body is our organ performance is going to decline, which is depicted here in this figure. And I, as a physician, we always think about dichotomization of health. We think about when the performance is normal and it's abnormal. And normally, if it's abnormal, we say, okay, you have a disease. Very often also in clinical care, a patient comes in and a patient asks, together with the family doctor, do you have good news or do you have bad news? And this is so in our genes that we try to dichotomize our health that I think we should really change the paradigm, because we can already predict if somebody will have that disease in the end. Health span is the duration we have in life without a chronic disease. However, we already deteriorate in our performance and in our function. And while we are deteriorating, it's very, very, very easy also to predict where you are in 10 or 20 years' time. So our aim is really to change this trajectory of organ performance, and to not only to invest in the individuals at pre-disease stages, think about pre-diabetes, people who are going down in the lung function, to improve that, but really to improve the function also of the individuals who are successful agers, and to really change the trajectory of a normal trajectory to an optimal trajectory. And we are now at the phase where we are defining what is optimal health and how to achieve that. And we not only want to do that at the age of 50 to 60 and 70, where you really already see that somebody aged, but much, much earlier in the trajectory. Think about at the age of 30 to 40 to optimize the trajectory over the life course. And that is what we are doing in research, but also now we are transitioning to implementation into clinical practice, and much, much more trial designs, which are incorporating that transition into even public health. We also think about manipulating in a very positive way individuals already to obtain a better start of life in individuals who are unborn. So think about if somebody would like to become pregnant, how to optimize their health, that the next generations have the best starting capacity. So I think it's a very, very interesting way to talk and to see about trajectories rather than it's good or it's bad, what we normally do in annual health screenings. To do so, we need an ecosystem. And here you see the Singapore ecosystem we developed. And you just heard the Dean, Prof Chong, saying that we would like to increase the health span of Singaporeans by 5 years until 2050. I think we even have the goal to have 3 years of health span increase in the next coming decade, in 10 years' time. So how do we do that? You need an ecosystem and really combining preclinical research with clinical research. Because first of all, humans are not mice. However, we can learn so much from mice and preclinical models to learn and then see if we can translate that knowledge into humans. And I think here the Center for Healthy Longevity is very unique, that the preclinical and the clinical teams are really closely working together. So we develop in the preclinical team the geroscience hypotheses. We are applying biogerontology. We have in the clinical team lots of cohort studies where we can, for example, establish gerodiagnostics to measure biological age. And we also can do the intervention studies. And once in mice studies, we see, okay, there is a positive effect. Then always the question arises, can we translate that to humans, and how do we can translate that? And how can we translate the outcomes of human research back into preclinical research and into model organisms? So we have lots of trials ongoing. We have lots of cohort studies where we are either involved or we are leading them, so that we can really make sure that we have the right diagnostics in place and we have the right geroscience interventions in place to lower the biological age to achieve our goal to increase the health span of Singaporeans by at least 3 years and 10 years' time. At a certain point, especially as a clinician, you have to make choices if it's already implementable in clinical practice. And we formed consortia around the world of individuals who would like to do that, not only in private clinic, which is already established, but also publicly. So that's an exciting step we're in at this moment in time. And of course, very importantly, is also to introduce it into public health. Because think about, in the end, 100% of the individuals on Earth, they are aging at this moment in time because we are facing chronological time. So therewith, nobody really escapes of the aging process at this moment in time, which also means that if we are considering to whatever we find to implement it into tertiary care, this will never be possible. It has to be embedded into GP practices and in the end into public health and the public health sector. And this is also the reason why we are working closely together with the health district at Queenstown, and of course also with Health CSG. We could not do this without the public-private partnerships, because it's important to not only have nice research results, but also to implement it in the end into the industry we have. And the industry is booming at this moment in time, as you already heard from Professor Brian Kennedy. There is a huge ecosystem at the moment and lots of investors to see how we can really target the health span in individuals. So very important is not only to have that research ecosystem looking forward to diagnostics and interventions, but also to education. So for the first time, the Academy for Health Longevity will also be presented. So I think it's exciting that education plays a part. If we would just focus on Singapore, I would say that's not enough, because everybody on Earth is aging at this moment in time. And that's also the reason why CHL, but also the Translational Aging program is hugely embedded into international activities and other societies. And that's what you're seeing on this slide. For example, the American Federation of Aging Research is a hugely established organization already for decades. Working with them is very important. The Academy for Health and Life Science Research is very important, bringing really the key opinion leaders together to be able to, in the end, to move the needle and also to improve regulatory actions, for example. The Longevity Biotechnology Association is another very important partner, because we need not only AI and machine learning to really understand the aging process, but we also need technologies, etc. We need to, in the end, translate it into, I would say, every hospital system on Earth. So we need trained healthcare professionals. That's the reason why I founded the Health Longevity Medicine Society, where CHL plays a huge role And the most important vision of that society is to develop health and longevity medicine as a respective and independent medical specialty in the end, which is recognized. So there are huge movements, and CHL is part of most of these societies to really make that change. I think we should not forget to also to talk to regulatory agencies like the FDA and the EMA, but also to others who are involved in drug and medical device recognitions. But we also have to play in the political agenda and really see if we can have influence in the World Health Organization. And we are living at the moment in a decade of healthy aging. I think this is the most important decade for now for the WHO and the United Nations, because there the KPIs are being set for countries to see how individuals can health agier for longer and what strategies of different countries should be. It's also very important to embed all our knowledge and our plans with a good discussion with medical councils around the earth. It's not only that we have certification processes about education activities, but actually certifying physicians that they are able to work in this new coming field, and that these physicians are closely working together with basic scientists and applied scientists. Very important, if everybody could be a consumer, is to have consumer organizations. So around the world, we are now thinking of how to engage with consumers to give them a voice that we as researchers, and especially at CHL, we know what to do because consumer ask it. Because if there is a push from a consumer side, I think the research will flourish even more. You know, more normally we have insurers which take care if we are getting sick. So how do we do it if we are not getting sick and we are staying healthy, and maybe even if we are optimal in terms of our health? I think very important is to start these discussions, and we do that globally, but we would also invite you as audience of our webinars to have these discussions, who should pay for what. And then of course we have the governments, and it's a pleasure that we have our MP Henry Kwek today here to also touch a little bit on these topics. Very important that I think as CHL we also need to bring people together to have rough and very good discussions about the topic. And I would like to introduce you to a full week of events. We have not only a very intense course of health and longevity being established by the Academy for Health and Longevity, which is taking place at the 26th to the 28th of February, where we have huge, very, very novel techniques of education, really getting to the forefront of all key opinion leaders and asking them a little bit other questions than we would normally read in articles. So that's a very intensive course for 3 days. And then we are talking just about one topic, and that's about supplements 2 days later, from the 29th of February to the 1st of March. Why have we chosen to just dedicate a conference on one topic? Because supplements, think lots of people use it. There is lots of discussion, how good they are, what the quality are, if they really help or not help. So we would really like to see what is the hype, what is the hope, and what is reality. And the conference is designed that we always have a preclinical aspect to be discussed for certain supplements, then the clinical aspect, we are summarizing that, and then we are also focusing on regulatory activities, for example. So hopefully that will be a nice meeting to see you in person as an audience. Everything would not be possible with great teams. So the preclinical team and the clinical team work nicely together. Before I started at NUHS, you see a couple of photos where Brian is much younger than he is at the moment, because CHL already exists for a couple of years. And it's really nice to see that there is an evolution of the team, and that we are spanning so much knowledge from the preclinical side to the clinical side, but also including, for example, economics or social science, that we can really tackle it in a very nice way. So I will stop here, and I will introduce now the next speaker, and it's a real honor. It's Professor John Wong, and working at the National University of Singapore. He is the Isabel Chen Professor in Medicine Science, but most importantly, he is Executive Director of the Center for Population Health. And he is, I would say, at the moment most known because of his Queenstown project. So, Prof Wong, over to you, hearing the newest updates with regards to the Queenstown project.
Well, no, thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity to share with you. A very good evening. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in this world. I'd like to take the next few minutes and share with you what we are doing, one program that we're doing in Singapore called the Health District at Queenstown. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to reframe the challenge of demographic change by saying that long-lived populations are not the inherent problem for societies, but rather the problem is that we have not removed the barriers that prevent people from reaching their later years with the good health needed to thrive and to be able to contribute to family and society. And we have this enormous resource, of older people that has never existed in human history at this scale. And we can build age-diverse societies that can leverage and build on the complementarity of skills and qualities of both younger people as well as older people. So what are the determinants of health that, if one addresses, can prevent premature disability? I think it's important to realize that 60% of the factors that impact premature disability are social, behavioral, and environmental. So not healthcare. So building more hospitals, developing more drugs will impact perhaps maybe 10%. We need to move out into that 60% space if we really want to shift the needle. And one can see that that health is a product of multiple determinants: social, economic, environmental, and structural. And within social, there are 10 determinants of health: income and wealth, health system and services, housing, transportation, the social and physical environment, public safety, employment, education, and broadband access. So again, just emphasizing health systems and services will not address the 9 other areas. And it's also important to understand that health is the outcome of complex systems. If one used obesity as an example, urban design affects it, quality and type of food, economic factors, employment factors, physical activity and transport, the climate, air pollution, physical safety, and several others. Luckily for us, there are 2 very important papers and reports that have come out within the last 3 years that can help us address and narrow the gap between health span and lifespan. The United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging Baseline Report, which came out in December 2020, and the US National Academy of Medicine Global Roadmap for Healthy Longevity, which came out last year, and which I was privileged to co-chair. So what we are doing is we're taking these 2 global reports and seeing how can we translate this into Singapore. And so we are developing the health district at Queenstown. We're starting off by saying that successful 21st century societies have to address 5 domains: well-being, productivity and engagement, security, not just physical, but also financial, equity, and cohesion. And that what we need are validated, scalable, and sustainable solutions. To do this, we are adopting a whole of society, whole of government approach to take this real-world location-based platform and, together with the residents, co-creating innovative ways to do 4 goals. Can we increase healthy longevity? Can we enable purposeful longevity so that we can have a life of meaning and purpose throughout our lives? Can we promote intergenerational bonding? And can we support a community for all ages to allow people to age in place if they choose to do so? So the Health District is a very unique multi-stakeholder collaboration that seeks to address the multiple determinants of health and really try to strengthen residents' health and well-being holistically across their life stages. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey of co-creation with residents and community partners, where we can pilot solutions, and that these solutions have to be evaluated not only for efficacy, but for the ability to scale sustainably across the whole of Queenstown and then offered to the whole of Singapore. It has to be a pathfinder, and it must be an enabling platform for innovation, with residents and stakeholders really tapping cross-sectoral expertise. So we are taking this township, this district, population close to 100,000. It's already a super-aged community. And so this is what the demographics of Singapore will look like in 2026. So it's already there now in 2022, 2023. And 80% of the residents of Queenstown live in public housing, again, reflective of the whole of Singapore. So we are working across the following themes, the following work streams: preventive health and care delivery, purposeful longevity, shaping the built environment, harnessing technology, and very importantly, evaluating whether we're on the right track. And we're doing this with three overarching themes. Can we co-design using Ibasho principles, which I will highlight in the next slide? Can we do this with effective communication and engagement between residents and stakeholders? And very importantly, can we harness the principles of behavioral and implementation science so that we can do this in a timely, scalable fashion? So Ibasho principles, Ibasho was developed by Professor Emi Kiyota, who has moved to Singapore and joined NUHS. And Ibasho principles rests on the concept that older people are not treated as people for whom we have to care for, but are valuable assets to the community. There are 8 principles. Firstly, elder wisdom, that older people are a valuable asset to the community. Normalcy, we need informal gathering places to foster relationships. Number 3, there's no such thing as being on the margin. Everyone has to be involved in community life. Community ownership, the community must drive development and implementation. It must be multi-generational. It must be culturally appropriate. It has to build resilience, environmentally, economically, and socially, so that we can develop a sustainable program. And it must embrace imperfection. There's no such thing as perfection, that we do want to embrace, because we don't know all the answers. We have to embrace imperfection in our goal of really engaging everyone. How are we evaluating this? Well, we're taking the 5 domains that I mentioned earlier on: productivity and engagement, well-being, security, cohesion, and equity. We're breaking these down into subdomains. For instance, employment, education, community participation, general health, mental and cognitive health, geriatric health, family health, health behaviors and urban associated diseases, social capital, social inclusion. And we're measuring equity across all the domains. And we currently have 37 indicators, which we believe will give us a comprehensive, holistic view of whether we're achieving health across physical, mental, and social well-being. We are launching a baseline study so that we know where we stand when we start, and we will be repeating this the study again after a few years when programs start rolling in. Besides the co-chairs between NUHS, NUS, and the Housing and Development Board, we have the Ministry of Health Family involved. We have the Ministry of National Development Family. We have the Ministry of Social and Family Development, the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and the social sector through the Tsao Foundation. We have 10 international advisors, all experts in their own right, who are keen to share their expertise with us. And finally, what we are trying to do is we're trying to create a virtuous cycle of healthy longevity, This diagram is taken from the National Academy of Medicine Global Roadmap for Healthy Longevity, where we say that if we start off with a strong social compact, with equity and social cohesion at the very center, and if we invest in enablers, if we invest in the longevity dividend, work, lifelong learning and reskilling, volunteerism, if we invest in building social infrastructure, if we shape the physical environment to be enabling, and if we invest in health systems, public health, healthcare delivery, long-term care, geoscience, technology, and then if we address disruptors, the most important being ageism, but if we also address chronic disease, poverty, the social determinants of health, pollution and climate change, social and family conflict, and inequity. So if we invest in the enablers, we address the disruptors, we will lead to individual and societal health and well-being. And this strong society with individuals enabled across their lifespan will generate new forms of human, social, and financial capital, especially the human, social, and financial capital of the current older generation, which we haven't really harnessed. And this will drive the resources which we can then invest back in the enablers, completing the virtuous cycle. So we hope that Queenstown can be the place where we can develop the virtuous cycle, which we can then share through the rest of Singapore and with countries around the world facing similar challenges. Thank you very much. And I'm again delighted to be part of this very important webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Wong. It's really exciting, your pioneering activities, how you bring so many disciplines together and really focusing not only on the physical part, but especially also on the mental part and the social part. And I think we should all embrace that we are living at the United Nations decade for healthy aging. And I think this is a wonderful example. So thank you so much that CHL is working closely together in the Queenstown Health District. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Henry Kwek, who is the Member of Parliament for Kebun Baru. Mr. Kwek was educated at the Chinese High School and Victoria Junior College before graduating from Stanford University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and a Master of Science degree in management science. Mr. Kwek then worked at the Economic Development Board, EDB, followed by working at McKinsey & Company as management consultant, and Mr. Kwek has then been an executive director of the Singapore-based trading, investment and consulting company, and was then the chief executive officer of a boutique investment firm. But most prominently, he is known because of his political career and about his advocacy for healthy longevity, I would say. Mr. Kwek has spoken in Parliament about issues facing older individuals are facing and their caregivers, and has, for example, being launched the Hope Collective, which brings together volunteers, welfare organizations, government agencies to really draw the attention to problems older individuals have and creating very, very nice programs. So it's our pleasure and honor to have you here, Mr. Parliament of Henry Kwek, and to hear your thoughts about healthy longevity first, and then we have a short dialogue. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. It's a real pleasure to be here. First of all, it will be hard to top the wonderful presentation made by Professor John Wong. Singapore has made the news recently in the topic of longevity because recently we were featured as one of the world's 6 blue zone. This was a Netflix series, Living to 100, Secret of the Blue Zone. And his declaration certainly raised eyebrows. You know, how can Singapore, consistently ranked as a top-tier global city with the associated busy pace of life, be a blue zone, right? And aren't blue zones idyllic oases brimming with fit and health-conscious people, you know, health-conscious, organic producing, eating people? Because that's certainly the image that many people have when we think of other blue zones such as Sardinia, Italy, or Okinawa, Japan. So what I want to do today is to provide, while Professor John has provided maybe 10,000 feet of what we're doing for healthcare, but let me provide a 30,000 feet of how we get to where we are today with regards to being a blue zone. So I understand that there's a lot of friends from the rest of the world today. So let me give a bit of background of Singapore. We're a very, very small city-state on the island. It takes 1 hour to drive from one end of Singapore to the other. If you look at world statistics, we are considered 100% urbanized, right? So we have 5 million people. We are a very hot city-state, 2 degrees north of the equator. We're city dwellers. We're not frontiersmen. We're not the hardy farmer type. So then how do we get here, and where do we go from here? Well, of course, to do well with regards to longevity, over the years, we have tried our very best to make sure that we have accessible and affordable healthcare. And it takes a lot of hard work because we're rapidly aging. And so while we were rapidly aging, we have to pump in a lot of government resources to ramp up facilities for our healthcare system. And it's not just building more hospitals. We also have to reorganize the way in which our hospitals are built. So let me give you an example. Most people, when we think of hospitals, we think about acute care hospitals with emergency departments. So for those acute healthcare hospital, we have to make sure that we have very good equipment that can have life-saving interventions at immediately. So think about it as like an F1 pit. You're having a F1 race. When you're changing your tires at the pit, you need the best equipment so that you can save lives. But those are really, really expensive. And so therefore, we also have other kinds of hospitals, like community care hospitals, where people are, after going through life-threatening situations, they have to be immersed back to health. And so they are at community care hospitals where the focus is all on good quality health, but they can stay there for a longer period of time. And then we also have very specialist hospital types. For example, let's say the National Cancer Center, the National Heart Center, the National Eye Center, which are very specialized for particular kind of treatment. And so therefore, because they are specialized in that kind of treatment, they can do so efficiently at a low cost. So that's what we mean by affordable and accessible healthcare costs. Now, affordable and accessible healthcare, but it's necessary but not sufficient to allow a society to age well. And that's where the other parts really come in. And that is creating habits and norms for Singaporeans from young. And then as they grow older, find ways to empower them to age healthily with purpose and dignity. What do I mean by that? Let me give you a few examples of some of the habits. In Singapore, many of us, the men, serve in national service. We have a conscription service, and so we not just serve 2 years with our army, our armed forces, but we are expected to then defend our countries under the age of 40 or 45. So what it means is that from a very young age, we try to make sure that our kids, our youth, are physically fit. Not just the men, but also the women. So then we go through that 2 years of intensive fitness through our national service. And then beyond that, every male who is fit has to pass fitness tests until the age of 40 or 45. And so what it creates is a habit of staying fit. And then we support that by having many public sports facilities, pools, golf courses, gyms, even senior gyms. But beyond that, we also make sure that we try to encourage our people to be healthy by exercising in other subtle ways. So, for example, the government has designed processes so that walking is the norm. So, for example, many of you who live in Singapore realize that our universities are usually put on hills. Our schools have lots of steps. So in that sense, from a young age, walking is the norm. And we are also trying to beef out on our public transportation. So we aim to have 8 to 10 people within a 10-minute walk from a public subway station. What it means is that embedded in our people's everyday lives is walking, and that will make sure that we create enough. I would say a byproduct of that is that we have enough opportunities for exercising. And then as our people grow older, we also have lots of opportunities to get our seniors to take on more exercises. Now, beyond exercises, the other part is really healthy diet. So we have started paying some attention to this, but there's a lot more way to go. An example of what we're doing is we have famously declared a war on diabetes because we have realized that diabetes is a root factor, the root cause for many other diseases. And we are also moving, not just taking care of the health of our seniors, but also thinking about how we can take care of our health of our kids from young, including those from underprivileged. And so, and we do so by making sure that even people from underprivileged families, the moms have sufficient nutrition from young during pregnancy, and we make sure that that continues for into the early years. Now, beyond that, it's not just about health. Purpose and dignity of our seniors are very important. And so what we do is we try to make sure that our seniors can work as long as they can, because many seniors find purpose in work and they find joy in work. So that's why we have been raising our retirement age over the years, and that's what we will continue to do. Now, given where we are right now, looking forward, what are our plans now that we are approaching a super aged society? I would say we are trying to do 3 things. The first thing is that we're trying to re-examine what purpose means for every generation of seniors, because every generation of seniors have new aspirations. And what we are trying to do is to reconfigure our civil society to support our people's definition of what purpose is. Because what a purposeful retirement for, let's say, my parents' generation would differ a lot more from my generation. So that is a thorough effort to re-examine that. The second part is that we are really trying to think through what it means to be aging in place, because we are we are a compact city state. It is we are not like a place like Australia where you can build purpose-built nursing homes to house everybody. So in that sense, we have to find ways for us to make sure that our people who largely live in public estates can age in place. So that's why we have an effort like the Queenstown Health District that Professor John Wong has shared. That is an example of how we're trying to put in all the learnings together. Now, the third and pillar of that is a new healthcare reform that we have just recently rolled out. That's called Healthier SG. There's a few parts of Healthier SG. A key part of it is we want to focus our people not just when they fall sick, but on preventive health. And the way we want them to focus on preventive health is we want them every Singaporean to have a primary care physician, a family doctor who can work with them to come up with an individual health plan, and then to give practical advice on what kind of medical tests, what kind of vaccination they should be having over the years, so that even at a young age, before they fall sick, they really can start thinking of organizing their lives with health at the center of it. We're also changing our healthcare funding model. So traditionally, governments fund health institutes based on how many people they treat at the particular facility, right? So over time, we're shifting our healthcare model funding model to fund by region on a per capita basis, factoring demographics, so that the healthcare region groups can not just focus on taking care of the people who are sick, but encourage them to start channeling funding towards preventive health. And then, of course, there's the important work that CHL does, Center for Healthy Longevity does. Imagine that Healthy SG, with this focus, trying to change people's focus from sick care to preventive care. That is a certain platform that we're building. Now, in my personal view, the future of that is what the good research that Center for Healthy Longevity is doing, and then they can add on to this platform that Healthier SG is now creating for Singapore. Now, just to end, I would say that like any society that's aging, we understand fully the challenges that we face through the silver tsunami. But at the same time, we believe that it is possible to unlock the benefits that wisdom brings. And we believe as a society to bring in all levels of intervention, to create habits, to educate our people, to bring in international experts, to bring in international best practices, so that we can turn something that other people think it's a perpetual disadvantage into something that's a continuing advantage for our society. Thank you.
Thank you so much sharing your views, but also showcasing what Singapore at the moment is doing. And I think really Singapore is at the forefront internationally, if you compare different countries, really having a long-term agenda, how to age more gracefully and healthily as a society and population. May I ask you the first question? We can come up with lots of guidelines and recommendations, etc. But in the end, it is about the motivation of individuals who are just going to do it or not to do it. So how do you take the motivation of citizens into account while implementing strategies?
So that's okay. The context of Singapore has changed a lot over the years. We became independent in 1965. We were a former British colony. At that point, there wasn't universal education. So the first generation of Singaporeans, the education level is very different from, let's say, a place like Japan, which was highly educated for generations already. So therefore, during those early years, what we are focusing on is creating conditions so that there are healthy habits, right? So some of it is deliberate, some of it are byproducts. So an example of what I cited for national service, that's a byproduct. We needed to make sure that Singapore stays safe and independent, and that's why we have army, and that's why we have national service. But the key byproduct is the men need to stay fit, and then that also lift the whole society up, because when you go to school, it's not just the men who goes for training; it's everybody goes for training. So those are certain byproducts. Then of course there's deliberate efforts to make sure that exercise and fitness is part of everybody's lives. So that is in the past. Moving forward, I think as our society becomes highly educated, this is where I think we need to start moving towards much stronger public education. So that's why we started talking about let's say the war on diabetes. That's very, very important. And I certainly hope that we can do more of that. But at the same time, those habits and creating those habits at the government level, at the societal level, must remain. For example, we have now in our schools, we made sure that when the kids eat things and eat food in schools, the diet is carefully calibrated to make sure that it's not too salty, it's not too sweet, and the kids grow up in this environment, and then over time, they come and tell their parents, why is the food at home so salty or so sweet, so education and habits creation must go hand in hand, even moving forward in the future.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One last question from me. What is the role of industry partners, the industry itself, settling in Singapore in the entire idea to create healthy longevity nationwide?
Yes. Well, I would say that today, if you look at our economy, the pharmaceutical industry is huge. It's a big contributor of our economy, and we do manufacturing and potentially, and also over time, more research. In fact, when I went overseas for my undergraduate for education in Stanford, it was paid by a pharmaceutical company. So that is, pharmaceutical companies very big. But having said that, healthy longevity has the potential of disrupting what a lot of established pharmaceutical companies are doing. Because by potentially looking at low-cost alternatives at the early age and keeping everybody broadly healthy, I think that is complete, in my view, a paradigm shift, right? So then the question is, how can we encourage that? Now, if you sum up the value proposition of Singapore, you can sum it up as knowledge, connection, and trust. These three, in essence, summarizes what we do as a country. And applying that to healthy longevity, I would think that, especially when we're talking about early age intervention, early interventions, and it's disruptive, there needs to be places like Singapore, which is supportive and nurturing of this, but at the same time, build the trust in this. Because when you leave it out, it may not be done in other countries. So it must be done and incubated in a place like Singapore. And if it's incubated in a place like Singapore, then you need to make sure that what is done is trusted. And what is done is connected to the leading advances in the rest of the world. So that's how I put it.
Thank you so much to share all your knowledge and also your vision with us. And I really love knowledge, connection, and trust as the three main pillars of Singapore. And that leads also to the next part, especially about knowledge. I would like to introduce to you the program director of the newly founded Academy for Healthy Longevity at the National University of Singapore School of Medicine, Professor Hans Maier. He is also visiting professor at our school. And I think it's a new foundation, the Academy, but really contributing, I would say, to the first pillar of Singapore. So over to you, Professor Maier.
Thank you so much. I'll start with sharing my screen. In reflection to the nice overview Mr. Kwek gave, I would like to say that the educational part and the fact that education is the center of your approach does help enormously in our journey. And we are on a journey to introduce longevity in the educational part and in the academy. And I think it's thanks to the leadership of the Dean, Professor Seng, again, that we are able to we were able to establish this academy. We started half a year ago, and he basically said, "Well, the floor is yours, and do what you want to do, and make it a success." Well, that's what we are trying to do. We identified that education is the enabler of change, and we need change if we really want to go into a healthy longevity society. And we believe that education, especially in a new field, will lead to the paradigm shift that we are looking for. It's a translation and a transformation from a cure-based system to a health-based system. And we identified that we need to educate our colleagues, the health professionals, but also industry and leaders in society, political and non-political. We need to raise a new generation, and we need to have a sustainable program for those who make decisions, executives, directors, CEOs, and whatever you can imagine. So we started with the incubator, the talent incubator, and let me update you on this. We were looking for new ideas on education, and this is a sort of boot camp approach. We started with we started with a group of 40 people. We brought them together in a night, in a 10 days and a 10-night campus structure educational system. We had programs from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Yes, that's correct. It's an extremely exhausting program. And this is with the group after the whole program. They were still quite happy, but exhausted. We had 120 applicants. We selected 40 of them, and they are now forming the alumni club, and they're very enthusiastic, and the results are good. We brought them together with 5 permanent senior staff members. We were on the premises as well the whole time, and we had an incredible plethora of lecturers and mentors. This was the result. The program got a 5-star out of 5 rating. 32 participants said it exceeded their expectations, and 31 will definitely recommend the program to the next generation. We will run the program again in June and July next year, and we are convinced that this kind of bootcamp construction, where you not only educate them on the subject but also on life events. How do you plan your career? Where do you get the best advice? How do you proceed for the coming 5 years? That kind of questions were all answered during the Talent Incubator course. We also identified during the admission of the incubator course that there is a lot of demand from people who are already working in the field and would like to do something extra. Want to know the new approaches of healthy longevity. Therefore, we are now planning the mid-career intense course. The intense course is, again, a new way to bring the top of the whole global society of longevity together with a selected group of health professionals and professionals in industry or wherever they come from. We have an intense course. It's from 9 to 9 every day, and it's combined with the conference on supplements, as Andrea already told you. What we do is that we introduced, thanks to the combination with the conference, we introduce all the top leaders from the world, and we will have not only lectures from them, but we have them always interviewed and interaction with the audience during the different lectures. This is the first time that we're doing it. We think that the combination with the conference is excellent, and we invite you happily to join us. What we are developing now is a master degree. That master degree will be a face-to-face and a virtual online course where we can add extra knowledge with a special master for healthy longevity. It will be the first at the moment in the world. Last but not least, we are up for tailor-made programs. We have requests from industry, we have requests from other hospital systems to have tailor-made programs. We can provide that as well. And we are developing an executive class. That is a class where we educate those people who make the decisions in healthcare and in industry and in politics on healthy longevity. We think that this is a field where you need some extra information, and you have to discuss the items of healthy longevity and its consequences in the group of peers, a group of executives from all over the world. We will bring them together in the end of next year. This all is under the leadership of the Young Lu Lin School of Medicine, and in close combination with the Center for Healthy Longevity. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your leadership, Brian and Andrea, and I give the floor back to you.
Thank you so much in really showcasing the first successes of the Academy. And indeed, the talent incubator was demanding, but I think was very, very successful. I think the alumni do a very, very nice job to stay connected and to help the next generations. Good. Then it's now time to talk about the next generations, and I will hand over to Professor Brian Kennedy to introduce our staff who are also with us tonight live to have a short panel discussion. Over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Andrea. And I really wanted to bring some of the people at all different ages in our Healthy Longevity program and our Center for Healthy Longevity to talk a little bit about what they're doing and also why they're excited to be doing aging research. These are very successful scientists who could have worked on anything in biomedical sciences, and they chose topics related to aging. And so I think I'm going to throw everybody a curveball and start with the PhD students. And so if I could have everybody on the screen, I think my first question is going to go to Jessica. Give us a quick update on what you're doing and how it relates to aging, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So my project is on how to incorporate wearable technologies into clinical studies and explore how they can be used to track aging. And being in the longevity field allows me to help as many people as possible because aging affects everybody, and I want to find solutions to help others optimize their health and maximize their health span so they have the ability to then focus on other life goals.
Thanks, Jessica. What are you planning to do when you grow up?
I don't think there's an end to growing up. I think I can always pick new things to do and new things to learn. So I want to try as many things as I can.
Sounds great. Sounds great. How about you, Jung-Lu? What are you working on these days?
So I'm a minion to Brian's lab, working on female reproductive aging and also the relevant cellular pathways. So recently we're trying to develop potential treatments by repurposing some of the already known longevity molecules and to put that into the context of ovarian longevity. And I hope what we're doing can promote women's overall health and longevity, not only about fertility, but also about how to reduce the risks associated with this process of reproductive aging.
You know, one of the exciting things I think that to me is that several of the supplements we talk about all the time that are influencing longevity, like NAD precursors, alpha-ketoglutarate, or even the drug rapamycin, have been shown in animal models to also preserve ovarian function and extend fertility. I think that link is really exciting. So you're trying to explore that, right? I know you've screened a few compounds and you're testing other things.
Yes, we actually got hits from some natural compounds that are pretty safe in human beings. So they do show promising results to go to like human use. And we are also trying to repurpose some of the FDA approved drugs with pretty good safety profiles.
Yeah, I think these ovarian studies are not just about biology, they're about equality. If we can preserve fertility longer for women, that gives them more time to choose between family and career and allow them to do, balance things better in their lives. So we're very hopeful that's going to work. I want to turn to one of our research assistant professors, Jorming Go. He's actually been interested in aging for a long time. We were together at the University of Washington a long time ago, and so we've known each other for a while. What excites you about aging these days, Jorming?
Well, thanks, Brian. You know, initially when you asked me to join you on this adventure, I thought it was a science fiction adventure. I said, "Count me in." Very excited to join the program in the center. But ultimately, I guess my primary reason is really how does exercise improve health, and ultimately how does it extend lifespan? It doesn't expand lifespan, but extend lifespan and health span. So my motivation comes in to try to understand what are those signaling molecules involved, you know, from a molecules to cells to ultimately a systems model of how it actually improves health. So some of our studies on humans are trying to address that.
Yeah, and I know you're really focused on exercise. And one of the things you always tell us is that the recommendations on exercise from things like the World Health Organization are really probably could be extended, and maybe they're not quite sufficient to get as health outcomes we're looking for. Can you comment a little bit more on what the appropriate amount of exercise is?
Absolutely, Brian. I think it's a general guideline, and as general guidelines go, they are really meant as a minimum yardstick for people to follow. But most people don't even meet the minimum guidelines. That's number one. Number two, the problem is with such a guideline is it's very static. So even if you've been exercising for a long time, you're still telling people the same messages 5 days a week, 30 minutes each day for a minimum of 150 minutes each week. So if people are already exercising regularly, they need to change the way they're training. It doesn't mean that you would be doing the same thing the same time for years on end. So that's why people don't listen to those guidelines, because people get bored. But I think there has to be some level of periodization from the sports science world that can be translated into the public health arena.
That's great. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the results. I wanted to bring in Vincenzo Sorrentino, one of our newest assistant professors in the Healthy Longevity program, and he's been working on strategies of slow aging. What excites you the most these days, Vincenzo?
Hi, Brian, and thanks for the invitation. So yeah, my focus here at NUHS is really on understanding how some of the hallmarks of aging, of the biological process of aging, are interconnected. So for instance, in particular, I'm interested in how modulating NAD levels, you mentioned NAD boosters before, how they can actually impact the other hallmarks of aging, in particular, the connection between mitochondrial function and protein aggregation or loss of protein homeostasis as we age, which is very prominent in every organ that we are studying. So that's really the focus of my research here at NUHS.
Hopefully some of those supplements we can move into the translational research and maybe even the ovarian research as we go forward. So I think it illustrates the fact that we're really trying to create a whole pipeline from basic science to translational to clinical. And so we're excited to learn more about the results as they develop. One of the challenges with having a discussion on aging is there's always a neurobiologist that sneaks in. And so I want to bring in Ling-Shou Chen, who's in our brain aging program and the Healthy Longevity program. And he can tell us a little bit about what he's doing. And this is just a prelude too, because we want to have Shou Chen on for a full show sometime in the near future. I haven't asked him yet, but now I've said it publicly during the show, so you can't say no.
Happy to be on and happy to be on the program. So the research we do focus on the fundamental question. So one, for neurodegenerative disease, the first is why certain neuron population are selectively degenerate. This is true for any neurodegenerative disease. If you take Parkinson's disease, for example, dopaminergic neuron die. And why is that? So we're trying to understand that. The second question that we're trying to address is, but it's not neuron, there's also a glia cell in the brain. So we also want to know what's the glia contribution. And lastly, this is also inspired by Brian, because typically I thought it's an age-dependent disease. So that's it's just unavoidable that it's going to happen. But after listening to your talk and then looking at different studies, now is thinking to use this anti-aging approach to trying to counteract neurodegenerative disease. So that's probably the newest topic that we are trying to pursue.
Yeah, it's a little bit like ovaries, which we talked about earlier, that a lot of the interventions that slow aging actually seem to protect against neurodegeneration. And I think it'll be exciting to validate those things preclinically in different disease models and get them into the clinic, because it's a new strategy maybe to target the aging component of disease.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's why I think it's very exciting, because there's something that will be cool. In a way, you don't need to really understand what happened in the brain, but if you can go in from peripheral, which is an easier target for the bias, then it's a very nice approach. So I completely agree.
All right, so more to come with Shou Chen. Jan Gruber's already been on the show before. Some of you may have seen it. He's been in Singapore a long time, and he works largely in C. elegans, but that's really not the whole story. I think the biggest experimental organism for Jan is Jan. Every time I talk to him, he's trying a different supplement or a different exercise program. And so remarkably, he's still alive and looks quite young. So something must be working. So how's it going, Jan?
Yeah, I mean, things are exciting. It's been a real rush of progress all around the world, and in Singapore, things have been growing. It's hard to keep track actually what's going on, so it's amazing. So we work at the moment on still work on drug interactions and basic mechanisms of action. How do drugs work? And I think one of the key things we have to learn is how to target the aging process itself. There's a lot of talk of hallmarks, but there's also a really interesting genetic interventions where you have interactions between different aging pathways. And I think, nematodes have told us a lot about the drugs we're currently translating. And I expect that the next generation of interventions will similarly come from invertebrates, be validated in mice and eventually, hopefully, make a much bigger difference in the clinic.
I think one of the things you're working on, which is a big challenge in the field, is how do you combine different interventions together? Which ones are going to have additive or synergistic effects? And what have you learned from those studies so far?
Well, the exciting thing is that it works. You can make combinations where the effects of the drugs, add or even interact synergistically. So we have some experiments where lifespan in animals that are treated only as adults can be twice as long or more than if they weren't treated. But the scary thing about those experiments is also if you start screening that search space, so you try combination between supplements or drugs, you can also get plenty of examples where either interventions that you combine become toxic or at least neutralize each other. So I think it's an unsolved problem how to make a good combination between interventions, and that includes lifestyle interventions. There's worries about effects of metformin on exercise responses and antioxidants on exercise responses and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to learn in this, both in terms of getting really big and impressive effects on the one side, but on the other hand, avoiding disappointment where you essentially sabotaging yourself by just, randomly stacking things on top of each other.
Thank you. And I want to thank everybody for joining. We're running out of time. I do want to mention also that you've already seen Donglu, Jessica, and Jorming on previous shows because they've acted as presenters and moderators for many of our past shows. And, it's not just Andrea and I that make this show possible. It's also our producer, Joe Augustin, who's the fact that we had a couple little glitches tonight just reminded me of how smooth all of the shows have been and how well they've been produced. So I want to thank Joe and also So Young Sun, Max Lindfried, Camille Pabas, who help organize the shows and the speakers, and everybody within the Healthy Longevity program that's really contributed to making this webinar what it is. With that, I want to bring back Andrea for some last words.
Yeah, thank you so much. I do not think that we hear what Jan is actually taking. So I think then I have to go back to the citation of MP Henry Kwek. It's about knowledge, it's about connection, it's about trust. And I think if we can work together optimizing health while antagonizing the aging processes, I think the future will be super bright, especially with regards to our health. I would like to highlight once again, we have this intensive course of the Academy for Healthy Longevity. So please join us in the conference about supplements. Maybe we then hear what Jan is taking or not. Good. I think that Brian is now telling what kind of other episodes you are going to get in the next coming 2 weeks. And thank you so much for your attention and being with us for so many editions. And it's wonderful to very often be your host.
Well, one thing, Andrea, I don't know if you realize this, but this is the 100th show. We're centenarians now.
Not sure. Okay. No comment.
You think we can live to 200?
I'm not sure, but I really like to also co-host it with you. So please leave us, as always, your comments in the chat function.
Thanks. And I want to just emphasize the next 2 episodes, and there's a reason for that. The next one will be October 12th, where our speaker is Yao Passos from the Mayo Clinic. He's an expert on cell senescence and mitochondria, so he'll be telling you all the latest updates on that topic. And then the show after that actually has already been introduced by Henry Kwek. You heard that Singapore is now the 6th blue zone and the first manufactured blue zone. There's a Netflix documentary that I'm sure many of you have seen, Live to 100, The Secrets of the Blue Zones. The man who really created the blue zone concept was Dan Buettner, and we'll be talking to him on show 102 on October 19th. So please join us for that show as well. I know all of you are interested in blue zones and particularly what the secrets of Singapore is. We'll hear Dan's views on that in the very near future. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Good night, everybody, and keep showing up for healthy longevity.
Take care.
In these clinical trials who've got serious diseases. So of course we're seeing things happen, but we don't know if they're related to the drug or not. I mean, I do lie awake, as I said, every night worried about side effects. I hope they don't happen. I'm going to have to touch wood about that briefly.
Yeah, you need to get some sleep, Jim.
There is no one next step, but we have to kind of advocate in all communities, whether it's the general public, whether it's investors, whether it's the government, and generally just build things up brick by brick and do what we can in the laboratory to make incremental progress that allows us to make stronger and stronger case that this really is possible and that, this is not just science fiction.
So just because they've been eaten by a predator or they've caught a disease, extrinsic factors. And what that means is that at later ages, there are only a few individuals left alive in the wild. So mutations that affect them at that age encounter a very weak force of natural selection. And understanding that and the fact that natural selection really favors the young at the expense of the old as well.
I kind of hope that people start taking a step back and realizing we don't need just another clock that's just maybe like the rest and maybe not really an improvement. I think we do need to take a step back and figure out what it is that we're trying to capture, how we go about doing that in a more informed way than just using more powerful algorithm.
Is there a limit to human lifespan? I don't know of any theoretical reason why we have to die. There's no program that says once you get to 120, you drop dead. But it gets harder and harder the further out you go. So I think that this talk of living to 200, I don't think there's any way in our lifetimes that we're going to get there unless reprogramming turns out to be a wild success and we can reset the body multiple times. Again, never say never, but there's a long way to go.
Our strategy is if we get a drug that actually increases lifespan, we publish that, of course. We're hoping that the brain experts will then look at, does this drug do good things for the brain? The muscle experts, the bone experts, the special senses. We then do, usually almost always, another study, a second follow-up study, which we'll call a stage 2 or phase 2 study, in which we make a lot of mice treated with that drug. And those tissues are available to anyone.
Actually, we have one extract of natural sources from Chanel that was pretty senolytic. They are currently they are developing it into a cream. That comes close to a natural product, meaning we don't have the single molecule that does the job in that extract, but it's from a natural source. But remember, natural sources can be super toxic. The fugu toxin, it's natural, but still nothing you want to have in a drug.
And so ultimately, it probably is a combination of those things. The way I see it is that if the network is functioning well, you probably won't get sick. But when the network starts to break down, then it kind of depends on how different organs are doing, which defines what kind of chronic disease you get and how you lose function with age.
We need to investigate, identify this healthy reference range in different populations before jumping on to the taurine intervention trial. And that is exactly what we are doing at the present time, to provide this healthy reference range across different ethnicities, across different countries, to figure out, okay, what is the appropriate level of taurine intervention that will go in humans.
If you look at what Carlo Bava, the doctor that followed Emma Morano very closely, what he did was, he started the red meat when she turned 100. And she had like raw red meat every day and 3 eggs, right? And of course, that would be completely crazy for somebody who's 45 or 50. But I bet you, I would not be surprised if that's what kept her alive these extra 17 years. I've been such a smart doctor that really paid attention to what she needed and intervened, saying right now she needs to not die of pneumonia.
I'm feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down.